Hi coaches, Ron Silico here. In this video I want to talk about why we play the ball matchup zone defense and zone defense in general. Specifically about the ball matchup zone defense. Watching a lot of basketball and learning about the game, I've really been influenced by reading and watching video on Ralph Miller's Oregon State teams and also watching a lot of Jim Boeheim's Syracuse teams. And the alignment that we talked about in the first video of that point coverage on the basketball when the ball's in the middle of the floor, and then going to the 2-3 alignment when the ball's on the side of the floor. We feel that's really important because, number one, what we've seen observing basketball over the years is if you can avoid offensive players splitting two defenders or making two defenders guard the basketball with one guy handling it, that's a good situation for zone defense. If you've seen any Bob Knight offensive videos against zone defense or some other well-known coaches, they always talk about offensive players splitting the gap with the dribble, making two players cover one. We think by having that point coverage on the ball at that initial point and then throughout, that helps reduce that split factor. So that's an important piece for us. Ralph Miller made the statement, anytime the ball was on the side of the floor, whether the defense was in a man-to-man or a zone, the typical alignment was a 2-3. So I started looking at that and started observing games, and sure enough, that is the case. So what we feel in that situation is really critical for us to have is that gives us help defenders on each side of the ball handler. That's the same case when the ball's at the point. We've shifted in a way that there's help defenders on each side of the basketball, and we think that's very important. Some other reasons for playing zone that teams have used throughout the years is maybe you're at a height or a strength disadvantage. You're a smaller team, not as strong a team, facing a team that has some better rebounding and better skilled players, so you need to have strength inside on your defense to help counter that. Maybe the other team's more athletic and more skilled than you are, so you need to have your defenders on the basketball applying ball pressure, confident and knowing where their help's going to be coming from at all times. Well, if you play a zone defense, you should know where your help position is going to be every time on the floor. I think you can look at that in the opposite scenario, and that's certainly been the case with Syracuse throughout the years. Is you've got superior athletic ability. So you've got height, strength, more athletic, long-arm players. You want teams taking long rebounds, so you can use your athletic ability to get rebounds, and then zones really allow you to convert out of the fast break. We talked about in the first video how we've got our alignment set up in a way that converts right into our transition game once we get the ball on offense. So getting out and running is a nice factor with zone defense, especially if you can gather those long rebounds, get some turnovers, and then get out and go. Poor passing. Bottom line from what we've seen is there are not a lot of teams that are capable of splitting those defense players that we talked about with the dribble. Not great passers, don't use a lot of ball fakes, don't try and distort the defense. Again, these are concepts that Bob Knight has talked through the years. Teams just are not used to playing against zone defenses. So we think poor passing is a critical factor that works in our favor. Foul trouble. Just because of the nature of defense and of the zone defense and not having to chase people as much and get out of position as much at times, if you've got players in foul trouble, you can often protect those players if you could put them in a spot in the zone where they don't have to worry about some of those factors. Simple offenses. A lot of coaches take pride in very intricate plays and intricate systems against man-to-man defense. Zone defense, you just don't see those as often. You don't get the practice time against it, especially if you're a team that plays man-to-man defense. If you're in a league that plays a lot of man-to-man defense, there's not going to be a lot of offenses that are able to handle the zone defense. And if you can do some things that we're going to talk about in later videos of keeping the ball out of the high post, you're pretty much going to neutralize most of the offensive concepts that teams are going to utilize against you. And then last thing I want to talk about is the zone press concept. If you like to apply pressure with zone pressing using a 1-2-2, a 2-1-2, a 2-2-1, a diamond press, being able to do those presses and then drop back into the ball matchup zone will allow you to do those things and teach those to your players.